Good morning, folks. If you're joining us early, thank you. Please familiarize yourselves with the controls of this live presentation. There are captions you can turn on, and there's a Q&A on the side that you can use. We'll be with you in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
My sincere gratitude to you, our audience, our family, and more than 80 guests that came through our virtual studio. Thank you again. So what can you expect from Age-Friendly Seattle in 2021? Well, you can expect stories of health, tech, and resilience to continue being close to home, and for the coffee hours to stay civic and virtual. And maybe, just maybe, by the end of the year, we'll be able to actually pour you a cup of coffee and break bread with you in person. But regardless of location, our events will take place twice a month instead of the weekly cadence you may be used to in 2020. And they will last a full hour now. A big shout out to the Seattle Public Library, who has signed on to sponsor both programs in 2021. A reminder that unlike Close to Home, which feature guests from community organizations, academia, the coffee hours have a very specific mission of connecting community elders with government decision makers. And to join these interactive webinars in 2021, you would still navigate to our virtual event hub, bit.ly/age-friendly-live. No spaces, but each word is capitalized. Visit there anytime to find program descriptions and a playlist with all the previous episodes, including special events, with subtitles in 7 languages, which do change from program to program. And you and your friends will still have the option to join from any phone by calling 206 686-8357 and entering the conference ID, which is 224-689-164. I invite you to come back again in 2021. And right now, join our virtual community by subscribing to our channel. It's called Aging King County on YouTube.
Well, good morning, folks. Welcome to another Age-Friendly Live show. Today's presentation is called Age-Friendly Seattle Close to Home, Stories of Health, Tech, and the Resilience. We will be doing things a little bit differently today, and I would like to start by actually showing you around a little bit. We'll be joined by Omari Salisbury very shortly. And I've been a big fan of Omari, but mostly watching his live streams out in the streets, kind of watching him running with the camera, really. But recently, I've been more familiarized with his morning update show. And I noticed that he switches, scenes quite a bit. So I thought I'd do that. I also gave up on having a script. I just have some notes here. So, but as you can see, I'm broadcasting live from my apartment in Seattle. And, I am certainly, as we kind of get through this sound here, we want to acknowledge that being in Seattle, we are on the ancestral land of the Duwamish people, the people who are still here. And if you would like to learn more, we welcome you to visit duwamishtribe.org and find out how you can get involved, find out what events are happening, and definitely check it out. We at Seattle Human Services, we lead with access and equity, and we want to acknowledge also that today and every day in February is Black History Month. And as part of that, today and every day, we do pronounce that Black Lives Matter, and that we are committed to lifting up the voices of elders in communities of color and elders who are refugees and immigrants. And you may have noticed that we have a number of languages that you can use to translate this very live show, including Swahili, including Chinese, Korean, Spanish, and we also have Arabic. And of course, English is also available. So what I have on the screen right now is a listing from our friends at Rainier Avenue Radio .world. They have a full slate of events for every week of February to celebrate Black History Month. Every Friday, so tomorrow, check out Friday Family Night. Next week, and the following week. Definitely a shout out to Rainier Avenue Radio. We have had guests from like one of the hosts on Rainier Avenue Radio. The show is called Seniors Matter, and the host's name is Brenda Charles Edwards, and we had her on our show, and actually she's invited Age-Friendly Seattle on her show, which is a nice exchange. So I want to make sure that you all have at least this this resource, but there's so many different ways, including NAM, Northwest African American Museum, has ways to celebrate. So we'll put some of these resources in the Q&A box. So how will today's close to home stories of health tech and resilience work? We'll check in with Omari very soon. So if you've joined us online, whether it's live or on YouTube, we would like you to tell us what you think about, how we're doing at the city. What are you interested in learning about independent media in Seattle, Converge specifically, and as you put in your questions and comments in the live Q&A on your screen, our two moderators, Michael and Justin, are going to collect those, and then they will either respond to you directly and privately, or they might actually publish your question, and then that question will Omari will see it and will ask him to respond. However, if your question goes beyond what's being presented today, but it's related to aging or disability, we do want to encourage you to call Community Living Connections. This is a network of community organizations all around Seattle and King County. And by calling the 1-800 number, which is 844-348-5464, you will be connected to an organization in your community that can offer services and resources such as food, meals, and a variety of other things. And they're all at various stages of reopen. I would encourage you to also visit them on the web if you have access to the internet. That address online is communitylivingconnections.org, and capitalization is not significant. So again, the number is 1-844-348-5464 to reach Community Living Connections, and the URL is communitylivingconnections.org. You'll see on the slide here that this program is a partnership between Seattle Human Services, which Age Friendly Seattle is a part of, and the Seattle Public Library. We couldn't do this without the library, and maybe you saw Mari's tweet a couple of days ago saying, "Look, Ma, I'm at the library," and in a way, we are now at the library because we will be joined briefly by our partner at the library. I'd like to call her the special agent in charge of age friendliness. That sort of started earlier this year, but actually older adults program manager Nancy Sloat. I'm going to bring Nancy up on the screen here in just a moment to share an update about what's new at the library as the libraries begin the reopening process. So Nancy, thank you so much for your partnership over the years, and thank you for being here today. We do appreciate you stopping by, and please remember to unmute your microphone. You're live on Close to Home.
Thank you, Lenny, and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be here, and it's great that we can continue to partner with Age Friendly Seattle and Seattle Human Services, and partner both here on Close to Home and the coffee hours that we also do once a month. So I just wanted to give you a really brief update on the services at the library. As everybody knows, the buildings are still closed for the public to come in, but we've been working really hard to provide curbside, we call it curbside pickup. You put a hold on a book, you get a notice, and then you come to the branch to pick up the book. There are about 13 branches now that have curbside pickup. We even have what we call curbside printing. If you can send a print job wirelessly, and all the directions are on the web, or you can call us to get that information, you can go pick up print jobs at the library. You can get 10 free pages a day. So it's great that we're able to do that. And I just wanted to say, if anybody has any difficulty, for example, if you've driven to a curbside location and can't get out of your car, you can just call inside, and staff will bring your materials to you. Let me see, could I have the next slide? So I always think of this as sort of like the heartbeat of the library is getting information. Our library staff and librarians are on the phone lines. It's called Quick Information. Or you can, if you like email or you like virtual chat, you can ask questions that way, but they can help you with holds, figuring out where to pick up your materials. They'll help with getting you set up with all of our digital resources, and they're good for everything. And I have to admit that sometimes I actually call them because I can't find the answer to something. They are the masters of this. So why don't we go to the next slide? So, of course, the library has incredible digital collections, and I just wanted to highlight these three. These are all of our streaming films, and boy, during the pandemic, I have really relied on these, and each one does a little different thing. There might be a little bit of overlap, but Access Video there on the left is actually documentaries. Hoopla up on the top right has a lot of movies, a lot of popular movies, also some documentaries, some TV shows, and also what you see there, digital comics, but that's in their print collection. And then Kanopy has lots of international films. There is a limit on the number of ones that you can stream every month, but it's a great service. And if you have a smart TV, you can stream it to your smart TV. Can I have the next slide? I'm not sure where we're going. So one of our most popular things to check out of all are hotspots. So if you don't have internet, or your internet is sort of wonky, you can actually check out a hotspot from the library. You search it like you'd search a book, and call Quick Information if you can't find it, but you just search for SPL hotspots. And when I checked this morning, we have 459 hotspots that we're circulating, which is fabulous. There is a hold list, but it doesn't take very long to get it. So the next slide, please. Of course, it's all free if you have a library card. Now, if you don't have one, if you haven't had one before the closure from the pandemic, you can get a library card. You can apply online. Or if you're unable to do that, you can phone in to that Quick Information number and they'll connect you up, and we can actually get you a card. So you don't physically have to go to a branch to get the card. And then the next slide. Yeah, it's tax forms. The library does have a very minimal number of tax forms at all of the curbside locations. We have the 1040s, they came in. And at the Central Library, we have some more forms, but we can always print forms for you if you go to a curbside location. And could I have the next slide? I think we're getting to the end. I just wanted to tell you that all kinds of information from the library about our older adult services, programs, resources are up there at this URL. It's spl.org/nextchapter, all one word. So I invite you to go visit there. And then my final slide, I think, is my final slide, unless not. But I also invite you to contact me, and I'll put my email address in the chat so you have that. And if you want to talk about the library, if you have questions, please feel free to contact me. And that's it. So that's a quick overview of what's happening at the library.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Nancy. We appreciate the overview, and we want to actually thank you for all the work you're doing at the library during the pandemic. I'm sure folks out there appreciate it very much. And I mean, who knew it's already tax season, right? Nancy, if you could stick around, if there are questions for you, we'll be happy to, and if there's time, we can probably pass them along to you, or if not, folks will have your contact information. Thanks again.
Yep.
During the pandemic, one of the reasons we actually started up these close to homes, and we've continued doing coffee hours virtually, is to provide information and an opportunity for folks to connect during the pandemic. And that's part of our age-friendly mission of civic and engagement, social participation, and in providing information in the communities that we serve here at Aging Disability Services and Human Services Department. One of the resources that I'd like to mention today, last time on the coffee hour, we actually took kind of a deep dive on, visiting the website that's called Vaccine Phase Finder, and then vaccine locations. Both of these are linked off of this website, which is coronavirus.wa.gov. That's the State of Washington Coronavirus Response website. What I'd like to point out here is that for folks, if you know someone who doesn't have access to the internet but is interested in learning about the COVID-19 and specifically about vaccinations, they can actually call a COVID-19 assistance hotline, and the number there is 1-800-525-0127. Again, 1-800-525-0127, and it's open all week long, and even on holidays. During the week, it's open Monday through Friday 9 to 9, and on weekends 9 to 6. Actually, sorry about that. That's the hours for Washington Listens, which is a different kind of a hotline. It has to do with just if there's someone you want to talk to specifically about the stress that COVID-19 is causing in your life, you can call 1-833-681-0211. It's called Washington Listens, and someone will listen and talk with you. And again, that number is 833-681-0211. And as I mentioned, they're open 9 to 9 on weekdays and 9 to 6 on weekends. But the main COVID-19 assistance hotline, the 800-525-0127, their hours are a little different and a little more expansive. They're 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we're just switching through slides at will. They are open 8 to 6 on weekends and observed state holidays, as they put it. While we're looking at the websites, I wanted to very quickly mention to you all that we have some openings here at Age Friendly Seattle. In case you haven't heard my kids' voices yet, you certainly have seen their drawings. So let's have a look here at what is currently available. Uh-oh, did that just quit on me? No, it's working. Very good. Okay, so City of Seattle. If we have a look here, I believe I'm showing you that web page, or maybe not. Here it is, City of Seattle. It's the URL is actually governmentjobs.com/careers/Seattle. And we'll put that in the chat again, governmentjobs.com/careers/Seattle. And what I'm referring to, I'm going to actually click on the menu on the left here, right next to where it says job opportunities, and look at student internships and work study. We at Age Friendly Seattle are trying to practice what we preach, and we want to make sure that we welcome people of all ages and abilities to apply for openings at the City of Seattle. And you're welcome to look, obviously, at all different positions that are available, but specifically at Age Friendly Seattle, we do have not the City Council, but the Community Outreach Program Support Specialist. That's an internship position that will be working on our team and actually making sure that these opportunities to connect are known by folks in the community. We have 6 languages that we translate into, but do people actually know that we're doing that? And we're wanting to be more intentional about it in 2021. So we certainly encourage you to apply for this position. And pretty soon we'll be posting a temporary position for another Age-Friendly Seattle program coordinator like myself to join our team until the end of the year. That's not yet posted, but it should be posted probably tomorrow, and if not, then next week. So I hope that you can join us on our team. That would be amazing. In the meantime, showing you my my living room here again. We are going to move right along to our main event here and continue with our presentation. Let me align that up right now. Again, I'm trying a slightly different setup here, so please bear with me. And here it is on the screen now. Perfect. Okay, so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Omari Salisbury. He is the co-founder and a host of a number of shows at Converge Media. I'm a huge fan of Omari. As I mentioned, I was watching his reporting over the summer during the protests in the CHOP and elsewhere. And I've now started watching the Morning Update show, which I believe starts in like 5 minutes, and we might be joining it inadvertently. But what do I know? I work in government. I'm just clicking buttons. This is the real professional that's bringing real information to the community. Please welcome Omari Salisbury to the show. And again, I have to say, please remember to unmute your microphone, and then you'll be live on Close to Home.
All right. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for this invitation. It's an honor to be able to spend some time with our community elders. Like I'd like to say that they're very much the custodians of our culture and traditions here in Seattle and from other places that they've come from. If you can go to the next slide for me real quick. All right, so just briefly about Converge Media. I won't read all of this here, but Converge Media is a leading producer of culturally relevant shows from the Pacific Northwest to serve the Black and urban audiences. We believe that Black and Brown communities deserve authentic representation, a focus on our community issues, and equitable access to elected officials, leadership, and government information. So basically, founded Converge Media with the whole point of trying to get more information to our community. And actually, the interesting thing about the Morning Update show that you just mentioned, that's getting ready to start here in a little bit, is that we started that show specifically for our elders in our community in the Central District in the South End of Seattle. Because if you remember a year ago, just about, when COVID was really coming into the city, there was so much information that was out there. It was like drinking out of a fire hydrant, and it was a bit difficult for people to really understand all the different things that were going on. And so we started a Morning Update show to be able to talk to our elders Monday through Friday and tell them exactly the best information about what was going on with COVID. You go to the next slide. Well, this is me. So as it says there, COO, founder of Converge Media. I'm from Seattle. I'm from the Central District of Seattle. I grew up on 29th in Jackson. I graduated from James A. Garfield High School. And from Garfield High School, I had an interesting career. I've worked the majority of my career actually overseas, mostly across the continent of Africa and the Middle East. I've visited altogether, about, it says there are 52 countries. That sounds about right. About half of those on the continent. And for many years, I lived in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, South Africa, Zambia, Botswana. It goes on and on. And all working in media or communication. So a very extensive career there. I also lived in Dubai for 4 years. And in Dubai, I worked on TV projects there, including launching a TV station. But I like to tell people, it says there, no matter where Omari finds himself across the globe, he'll always call Seattle home. I came back home here to Seattle in 2016, really wanting to take this world of experience that I had and bring it back to my community, bring it back to my neighborhood, and try to be able to tell our stories in our way. You can go to the next one, please. So won't spend too much time on this one, but this just breaks down where we're kind of all over, where people can find us on, on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We're also on platform Twitch now. We do newsletters. I want to encourage people. You can go to our website, which is whereweconverge.com. That's whereweconverge.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter there as well. And our audience is continuously growing. And what's interesting is that although we were saying that we wanted to target our news specifically for our community, it turns out that no matter what background you're from, whether you're Black or white or Asian or Hispanic or any other background in this city of Seattle and beyond it, people just appreciate good news and insights. And so Converge has really grown from just a community news source to a news source that people across the city, like I said, no matter their background, that they find a relevant and useful source of information. Go to the next slide. And who's watching us? Well, hopefully you guys are all watching when you have time. Over 1 million monthly viewers. 80% is in the Seattle metro area residents. Age demographic right there. And, we're engaged. We like to say that we're welcoming and supporting of our community. Like I said, it's diverse. Our viewers run across racial, age, gender, and party lines. We get a lot of differing political views that enjoy Converge. And then the way that we stay on here is that we're supported. That number is a bit bigger now, but we have people who subscribe to Converge. And so that's how we stay on air. People can subscribe for as little as $5 a month on our website. And it's really kind of good being directly supported by the people, because that gives us a lot of leeway and freedom and flexibility in what we want to do. And you can go to the next slide, please. And I might be done with all my slides. Is that all the slides, Lenny?
That's all we got. That's the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, good.
Yeah.
So, am I on camera, by the way? I'm not able to see myself, so I'm not sure if I'm on camera here.
Yeah, you're on the big screen.
All right. Okay. So cool. So, well, good. I'm glad that. So, with Converge, a lot of people very first heard about Converge during the Seattle protest, and because a lot of the local media here had never heard of us, people made the assumption that I was a live streamer, or I was somebody who was sitting at home with a phone and then ran out there to the protest or something like that. But I've had a career in journalism and a career in media that really spanned the world. I think with the Seattle protest, for some of you that followed it. It gave some real frontline insights. This was the first time where something like this had occurred in Seattle, where you really had a camera right there on the front line watching what was occurring here in our city. And we had unprecedented access, to be honest with you, especially when the CHOP formed, because we were one of the few media outlets that was actually there on the ground in the CHOP every single day while I was there. And I literally, we did hundreds of interviews over that 1 month, and was able to talk to a lot of people and get a lot of differing views as to why people were out there in the CHOP and what they were looking for and what their expectations were. And ultimately, what was really interesting is that, you know, we had no idea that so many people were watching, basically. And, you know, at some points, it was hundreds of thousands of people through different platforms watching around the world. And because of that, Converge became a big trusted news source as well to a lot of big national and international news agencies. So, you know, I was on the BBC over in UK, and Sky News, CBC, and even here in the US, platforms like CNN and ABC and stuff like that. But ultimately, I'm just a kid from the Central District who loves my neighborhood and who loves this Emerald City, and really just want to be able to use our media platform to engage, to interact, but most importantly, to do our part to build a better city moving forward. And do we have any questions?
It would help if I turn on my mic before I start talking.
Uh-huh.
So that shows you who the professionals are in the room. But thank you for your presentation, Omari. We'll go over to it doesn't look like we have any questions on the phones just yet, so we'll go over to our audience in the chat. I did want to address one comment that came through that is asking, you know, how do we talk about a topic or a speaker that we want to hear about? And that's exactly what we want to ask you about today is, you know, if you like, you know, hearing from Omari, who else would you like to hear about? Who else do you think your friends would like to hear from? So
that's a good question here.
Yeah, and certainly I put in my email address there, so please do contact me about that. You know, who knows, maybe you want to ask Omari to cover something, though. He definitely covers quite a bit. And one thing I wanted to add is I didn't grow up in Seattle or in the United States, but I did live in North Carolina for a while, so I appreciate seeing that Carolina blue, you know, sort of a color scheme there, Omari. That's pretty cool. But nowadays it's all Mariners, right?
Yeah, you already know. I see a really good question in here. If I could jump into it, it says is Converge Media promoting COVID vaccine for older people of African descent? Well, I can tell you this is that we actually have a show we do twice a week, which is called the COVID Coronavirus Update Show. And we do that from 6:15 to about 6:40 on Monday and Wednesday. We always have, like the city, we had Chief Scoggins on when the firefighters were all certified to be able to give the vaccine. We give out a lot of information whenever there's vaccine locations available, especially to our elders and to frontline workers. And I mean, we're also a diversity of thought and opinion. So, you know, our producer for the Coronavirus Update Show, her name is Nikki Barron. She's a very big supporter of the vaccine and people getting the vaccine and getting that information out. And I think that's the general consensus here at Converge. We do also have some guests on who have apprehensions around the vaccine. When you said people of African descent, there is a long-standing kind of apprehension in the Black community here that is well founded and grounded in distrust of the government when it comes around things like medical and medicine and vaccines and so forth. Some people may have heard of the Tuskegee experiment, for one, is one of those things there. So there's a lot of apprehension, but what we've also done as well is we've brought on like Crystal Fincher. She's a political strategist, a Black woman. She was one of the first people to sign up for one of the trials. We do a lot of conversations with King County Public Health. We've had Dr. Duchin, who's the head of the coronavirus response for King County, has also come on, and quite a few doctors and specialists around it. So the best thing that we can do for our community is give as much direct, relevant, useful information around the coronavirus as a whole, vaccine, and resources. So that's kind of what we're geared towards, is getting that information out there. So if there are elders that are out there that watch Converge, they know that they can find some of the latest information and resources. And that's really kind of what we pride ourselves on.
All right, thanks for addressing that, Omari. And so important to be aware of history. It's not a one-dimensional kind of an issue. And for our part, we do know that the vaccines are kind of hard to come by right now, and it kind of favors folks with internet access. So hopefully y'all took down the phone number where it is possible to reach someone on the phone for that support. Let me bring in somebody else from my virtual studio here. We saw Justin last time, so why don't we throw it over to Michael this time around and see what other questions or comments folks had, and then back to you, Omari.
Sure.
Thanks, Lenny. You started to touch on this, I think, a bit, Omari. Could you talk a little bit more about, what are you hearing, or are you hearing about, hesitancy from folks about taking the COVID vaccine? Are you hearing specific issues that need to be addressed within the community, you think, of folks that you talk with, or not?
Yeah, well, I definitely, and the thing is, in our community, it's just layered dynamics on top of it. Because, I mean, one, you have Black people nationally dying at 3 times the rate of white people. So, Black people are definitely dying more of COVID than white people. But then you also got a Black population that's not trusting so much of this vaccine. When you look at, let's just take it locally here to South King County, where that's where you find the biggest Black population in our county out there. And in some places in South King County, you find that the rate is 6 times higher than other places in the county, like North King County or Eastern King County. This is where a lot of essential workers are working. So a lot of people, that's where they live. They come into Seattle and other places. Your people who are bagging the groceries, when we talk about hazard pay, people who are at convenience stores, people who are out there in the front line, people who are working in assisted living homes and things like that. A lot of them live out in South King County, but also on top of that, so one, they're out every single day, right? Then on top of that, you find a higher concentration of multi-generational homes. So you've got people where maybe grandma lives in the house, you got the parents in the house, and then you've got the children all in the house, and maybe extended family. So, there's an increased risk because there's just more people, right? And it's crazy because we're finding that a lot of the frontline people, frontline essential workers in our community, they just don't want the vaccine because they see what's happening. They're out there every day and they're in the mix. A lot of people in our community who I hear people saying that they're not necessarily lined up and excited about the vaccine is actually it's a good amount of community elders, a lot of elders, and they have that lived memory, a lived experience. And that lived experience comes into play, and a lot of the doubts that elders in our community have around the vaccine. And some of the other people who are kind of shying off the vaccine, or people in our community who aren't necessarily essential frontline workers. They're not necessarily in the mix every day, and it's kind of like a wait and see attitude. Like, well, we'll wait and see what happens. And so it's very complex when it really comes to what's happening in I would say the Black community in Seattle and in South King County around the vaccine. But please believe that these essential workers that are out there, and that's why the COVID rate is so high in South King County, it's because they're out there every single day working, and they're contracting COVID and they're taking it home to their family members.
Yeah, thank you for addressing that. And vaccinations and COVID is seems like that's all we talk about these days. There's a question that kind of builds on that, and it's does Converge also engage in discussions, podcasts, etc., about health and health equity more broadly, in addition to the COVID topic?
Yeah, well, we do. Mental health is real big for us. We just did a special. We partnered with the King County Prosecutor's Office and with local therapists here in the Seattle area. And we did a special, I believe it was last week, during the morning show, and a 1 hour special in the evening about the issue of suicide right now that's impacting our community, especially with COVID. In our community, I mean all of us as a whole. 68% of all deaths by firearm in King County were suicides. And, and also when you look at the numbers adjusted by population, when you look at King County, Native Americans are actually number 1 in suicide. White people are number 2, and African Americans number 3. And, one suicide is too many. And we really spent a lot of time last week on trying to talk about these issues and getting resources out to the community. We've also done mental health town halls where we've made our platform available to mental health experts and people who can talk in a more professional and informed sense directly to community. I think that for our community, mental health plays a very big factor in a lot of things nationally as well, but specifically in hitting our community. The issue of, I think, medical and equity beyond COVID, I mean, it's real, and it plays into a lot of the discussions that we have on the everyday. I know that, again, it's crazy because a lot of things, like you said, ties into COVID, but when we talk about the COVID here, especially in the Black community, when you talk about COVID, it plays into people's minds the empathy gap that's there for Black people, especially Black women when they go to the hospital. A Black woman is less likely to be believed when she's saying that she's in pain, because somehow a lot of times medical professionals subconsciously they feel that a Black woman can endure more pain. Black women, it's the highest mortality rate in childbirth and some of everything else. It's a lot of distrust. And so before we can even make it equal of what it should be, there's a lot of lived experience that's built distrust of the medical infrastructure. And then we just see the latest news coming out of Odessa Brown, with Dr. Ben Danielson, who resigned from Children's Hospital there, citing inequity and citing the climate. So that is an issue that we have spotlighted time and again, actually, on Converge.
Thank you, Amari. Appreciate you covering that. And we do have another question, and I'm going to bring another member of our crew on the screen in a second. But I wanted to invite everybody watching right now, if you like this show, if you like age-friendly Seattle content, streamed right here from a one-bedroom in Seattle. And if you're watching this on YouTube, our channel is called Aging King County. Do click the subscribe button and the bell, and that helps us to continue. It doesn't cost anything, but it does help us continue providing these programs. I want to bring on another moderator that we have in the studio today, Justin. Justin, what else? What other questions do we have from folks today?
Hey, hey. So keep the questions coming in. I'm only seeing one more unanswered question right here in the chat, and it's about BLM. I'm going to ask, or one attendee is asking, how can white people most effectively support BLM?
Well, all right. So this is really a good question, and it sounds like a very intentional question as well. So let me be intentional in my answer here, and really just taking one step back as well. So there's Black Lives Matter as a rallying cry, as it's the statement that there is value in Black lives, and and you hear that Black Lives Matter because they do matter, and there is value in our lives. And then there's Black Lives Matter as far as organizations, and there's lots of different BLM organizations across the region and across the country. What I want to address right here with this question is that the part of the value of Black lives. How can you be intentional about awareness or doing something in your community about raising or the value of Black lives and Black people in our city and maybe across our country? And I think that it's important that the best thing I think that like white people can do is look around. Look around. There was this saying back in the day. It was like, think global, act local. It's what we find is that a lot of people will say, hey, Black Lives Matter, and they believe in those concepts of value of Black lives, but they'll be on the job and they'll know somebody's getting discriminated against, or they know somebody's being looked over for a job, or they know that this loan application didn't get approved just because, or they know that a job application was looked over because this person might have had what they considered a funny looking name or something like that, but they stayed quiet. That's the space. Those are the spaces to really make a difference. You see what I'm saying? And those are the smallest things, but those small things accumulate and accumulate, right? We talk about here in Seattle, some of the biggest issues that Black people are facing is the income gap. The average Black household makes $42,500 a year in the city of Seattle. The average white household makes $105,000 a year in the city of Seattle. God bless these guys that make $105,000, no problem. How do we move from this $42,500 a year to $105,000? Imagine, how can you live in this city off of $42,500 a year? That's one big issue, and all this is going to tie back into Black lives and their value. The second thing that's really impacted Black people here in the city is the loss of generational wealth due to gentrification. When I was a kid, the Central District, where I grew up, was almost 80% Black. It had a thriving business district there. Our own drugstores, our own dry cleaners, our own, health clinics, our own private schools, restaurants, some everything. Just like a lot of other neighborhoods that you go across Seattle, they have, an economic driver and economic engine. That's how it was when I grew up in the Central District. We never had to leave the neighborhood for anything. Well, due to gentrification, you went from 80% Black people in the Central District now down to probably like 14 or 15. And also with this displacement and gentrification, we've seen home ownership for Black people is in constant decline, right? A lot of our elders, and this is one reason why, man, I am so fanatical about supporting things with our elders, is that a lot of our elders in our community, they lost their home, or they were, I would say, kind of swindled out of their home by aggressive real estate developers. A lot of our grandparents, they just knew how to go to work and pay a mortgage and come home, and you get people showing up at your house with these predatory tactics. And a lot of our elders, who might have bought a home years ago up there at, say, Mount Baker or something for $50,000, and now the land is appreciated and this and that, and Another issue that they face is that our elders get taxed out, right? They can't afford it. They can't afford it anymore because that wasn't in their plan when they bought that house years ago. But that loss of generational wealth, because that's what you hand down to your children as a home, as some property, something like that. So we have generational wealth in decline. And then the third thing is the achievement gap between Black students and white students in the city of Seattle is one of the worst in America, right? And so if we just look at those three things right there, the income gap, we have the loss of generational wealth. So every generation, these kids are starting over, and the education gap. And these are the things that if we address, makes lives better for Black people. Black lives matter, right? And so these are some of these things that are also, it's also local. When you look, some of the schools in Seattle and very affluent neighborhoods, their PTSAs or their PTAs have, man, an abundance of money and resources. And you go to South Seattle, you go to like a Rainier Beach High School, and they're struggling. How do we address those things to be able to give more resources? You know what I'm saying? When we talk about gentrification, we just tell people stop moving into the Central District. Like, just stop. I mean, and the population density there is through the roof. They're replacing like there's a 500 unit building now on 23rd in Jackson. 500 units. So population density is going through the roof, and all these buildings are going up in the Central District that legacy people can't even afford to move into. So I mean, that's a big thing. So I mean, joining one of these campaigns to slow growth in the Central District and combat gentrification. I mean, when you see some of these things go in front of city council and things like that, you could be supportive of it. That's something that doesn't cost you anything, but you can lend your voice to. Another thing is for people who still might be working, might still be on the job, or might still have some influence. The biggest thing you can do is try to influence some of these employers that pass people over, who aren't giving opportunities, who aren't approving loans that should be approved. We fight redlining and some of everything else in our neighborhoods. It's been an uphill struggle. So I mean, the best thing that people can do is be very local and pay attention to what's going on, what's going on in terms of income equality, what's going on in terms of generational wealth, and what's going on in terms of education. Because another thing is, with this education gap, we can have no expectation for a young Black child to graduate, go get one of these great paying jobs in Amazon, and come back and buy property in the Central District or anywhere else in Seattle if we're not getting them on the right track early. So, these was what I see. I always said my big three on the morning show. These are three big issues that need to be addressed. And addressing these kind of issues can also help to build a better situation for Black people in Seattle, because like I said, it wasn't always like this. Like, it was vibrant and thriving for us. And just to let you know how crazy it is, I'll throw this out here. I shared a little bit about my career experience. I've been around the world. I've worked in some of the biggest media markets in the world. I mean, TV, launching TV stations, radio stations, streaming platforms, some everything else. I couldn't get a job in Seattle. I applied at all the big companies. I couldn't even get an interview. And I guess it's a good thing, because that's a lot of how Converge came out of, because I couldn't get a job. So now imagine that, how many times I was looked over. People just looked over me. Definitely I was qualified. But that's the landscape that's out there. So imagine that I came back to my city with all these big, huge companies here with a world of experience, but I couldn't even get an interview. Those are the kind of things that change out there if we say that we really value Black lives.
Thank you, Amari, for outlining that for us and for talking about your experience and what you've seen in your work. We at the City of Seattle, we try to we strive to lead with what we call RSGI. I'm sure you're familiar with Race and Social Justice Initiative, and we'll have in 2 weeks we'll have the director of the Office for Civil Rights here to talk more about that. We are getting close to the end of our show here, but we're not quite done yet. And I wanted to make sure before you go, I know you have a hard stop at 11:30, Omari. There's a comment and a request there that I think is real pertinent to what you just talked about and it is the Mayor's Council on African American Elders. It's called MCAE, and there's a link there in the live Q&A. It's a City of Seattle commission, and currently there are several vacancies, and that council or that is looking for individuals who are interested in being appointed. So the request is, Omari, is will you please help spread the word to help us identify people who are interested in advocating 100%. For older Americans.
What 100%. And let me be clear right here, Lenny, and make sure and please email me this information for follow-up after the show. I want to be very clear that, man, me, Omari Salisbury, and Converge Media, we love our elders. We advocate for our elders, and nothing gets us riled up more than when our elders aren't getting a fair shake, and if someone's trying to take advantage of our elders or putting them in less than equitable situations. We started the Morning Update show specifically for our elders. They're a treasure to us. They're man, it's a cornerstone, not only to our community, but to our city. So anything that Converge Media can do to be supportive of our elders, you consider it done.
Well, with a few minutes that we have, I know we probably won't do it justice, and maybe that's something that could be continued on another show of yours, or when this is posted on YouTube. We hope that you can respond in the comments. But the last question that I think we have time for is, how does Converge engage with the African immigrant communities across generations?
Well, let me tell you. So first of all, mimi kusema Kiswahili kidogo leo. I said these days I speak just a little bit of Kiswahili, but living all those years over there in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, I used to go up to Ethiopia all the time, fly up there in the Bole airport, hang out at the Mercado. I have a lived experience in East African culture in East Africa, and as well as South Africa and West Africa, but especially East Africa. And we're engaging with the community, but we need to do more. We want to do more. And so, I want to meet more people, because first of all, especially Swahili speakers, I'm nothing against everybody else, but you can see I just pop up when I get started speaking just a little bit of Swahili. But we want to engage that whole community. And I also want to say, man, this platform is yours as well. That's an area that we want to do more in. We're going to commit ourselves to doing more. And because that's a very important community and a very important part of our city and our fabric of our city and who we are.
That is, I'm sure folks very much appreciate what your commitment is to community elders, and that happens to be our commitment at Age Friendly Seattle. Thank you so much, Omari, for being here. We're gonna let you go. We hope that folks check out your shows, all of them, but the Morning Update is certainly the one that I try to catch on the regular. Thanks again, Omari, and we'll see you around, hopefully in person soon.
All right. Catch you soon. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Have a good one. So we're right at 11:30 here, and as I mentioned just a few minutes ago here, just 2 weeks from today, on the third Thursday of the month, and that happens to be the 18th of February, we are going to welcome Mariko Lockhart. She is the director of the Office for Civil Rights at the City of Seattle. She'll talk about how can people file a complaint and what the process is with that, and what is the city doing to lead with race and social justice. Really looking forward to that. You can find it in the same place you found this event today, which is at bit.ly/age-friendly-live. It's all one word, but each of those words, age, friendly, and live, are capitalized. We're going to put a link there in the chat for you. Thank you again for being here today on this, what started off as a rainy morning. I'm looking out my window here, and hopefully we will see you again very, very soon. And until then, до свидания, до новых встреч. What I said was goodbye, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Take care, everybody, and thanks for joining.